Good afternoon and welcome to the Ad-Hoc Scrutiny Panel Regeneration meeting. We have two apologies from Councillor Cooper and Councillor Lawson. Councillor Zain, would you like to introduce yourself?
So I'm Councillor Yusra Hussain for Batley West Ward. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm Councillor Smays, Chair of the panel. And we also have Cabinet Member here, Councillor Firth. Councillor Firth. Thank you. Right, okay. Minutes of the previous meeting then. Do we agree the minutes of the previous meeting? Yes, thank you. And
Yes, I do agree with the minutes of the previous meeting.
thank you. And we do have some items where we're expecting information back to future panel meetings. So we asked that the communications plan on the spring engagement exercise be provided to the panel ahead of publication, and that was on the Stadium to Stadium Enterprise Master Plan, and the panel be informed of any changes to the master plan, and an update on the master plan following engagement be provided to the panel. So we're looking forward to receiving that communication plan. I suppose it depends on your definition of spring. Yes?
Not at this meeting, Chair.
Yes. Okay, all right, thank you. Have any interest to declare?
None.
Thank you. And the meeting is held in public and is webcast. We've no deputations or petitions or public questions notified. So we move on to Dewsbury Town Centre update. I believe this is yourself, Simon, is it? If you could introduce yourselves for the items, please.
We've discussed that, and Simon is starting with his presentation.
Okay, so Chair, we're really pleased to bring with you the Dewsbury Town Investment Plan. I'm Joanne Bartholomew, Director for Development. Simon's going to take you through it. Before he does that, what I wanted to make sure that both the Ad-Hoc Scrutiny were aware of and the members of public were that we work in partnership with the Dewsbury Town Deal Board on this. And I am aware that Ad-Hoc Scrutiny will be attending the Dewsbury Town Deal next board meeting and observing that and working with them on some scrutiny matters. So thank you for that. Simon's now going to take you through the exciting opportunities for Dewsbury and what we're doing to shape that up.
Thank you, Joanne. So I'm just going to run through each of the projects. You've got your report, which sets out the status of each of the projects that we're delivering in Dewsbury as part of the town investment plan. So I just want to run through some of the highlights of that, because there's quite an awful lot of information in there that we can't possibly get through in one presentation, but I'll give you some headlines. I want to start off first with making sure everybody understands what's happened to date. We submitted the town investment plan as part of the government's town deal process back in 2021, and that was in line with the government's deadlines. And that was subsequently agreed by them in the middle of that year, or towards the end of the summer that year, so September time. We then had to move on to a series of business cases, one for each project, and there are 9 projects in the town investment programme. And again, we completed all of those in time, the last one going in June 2022. There was a sequence of decisions on all of those projects based on the business cases that we submitted, and the last ones of those came through last month. So we've been dealing with those for the best part of 6 to 9 months, but all have been approved in the current business case status as they stand. At the moment, we're currently working very closely with the Town Deal Board, which is also set up to oversee the town investment plan, and that's a collection of local businesses and individuals and some political involvement as well. Council's leader sits on that board, as does the MP. And overall, the programme runs to 2026, March 2026. So that's what we're trying to deliver to. In terms of key projects, I just want to run through some of the bigger ones. There's some smaller programmes embedded in that which are set out in the report, but I thought it'd be best to pick up on the bigger ones. The key project at the moment is Dewsbury Market. We have a scheme that does have planning consent already granted, but at the present time, the current market project is being re-evaluated to bring it within the original funding envelope, and that's a similar situation to another large project in the town, which is the town park. Certainly our experiences with cost, building construction inflation prices means that we're having to look at how we can change that project to bring it into and under the budget. Currently working with our colleagues in the Department for Levelling Up to ensure that any changes to that project has a valid business case, and we've had discussions with them about how to do that should we need to change direction at any point. And on that basis, start date on site is still to be confirmed until we've looked at the revisions and agreed those revisions with government to that project. The next large project on my list is Dewsbury Arcade. Council own that building now, and we do have a community interest group in place to manage that building once it's operational. Again, planning consents are all secured, and we are currently looking to secure a grant from the Heritage Lottery Fund process, looking for an additional £4.5 million to assist us with the refurbishment of that building. And this has now been submitted. That was submitted on the 23rd of February to Heritage Lottery, and we're looking for a decision, we're told, around about June, which means that once we get that agreed, we've already gone through a series of gateways, so we are not guaranteed, but we are confident that we can access that funding. That means we can start mobilising the project between July and September this year, and hopefully bring forward the arcade for opening in October 2024. Moving on to the town park now, the next large project. A little like the market, we are having to review costs there, and the project is currently under review to bring it within the cost envelope set by the town investment plan. The current scheme is currently centred on the town's core area of Long Causeway. We're looking at ways to shift that public realm park area around the town a little bit more should the project need to change significantly. And again, with this project, we are working with government colleagues to make sure that that business case is acceptable to them, because if we do make changes, we need to go through that assurance process to access the revised funding that we are requesting. Again, because we're undergoing that evaluation of the project, start on site for that is still yet to be confirmed. But as with the market, we're fairly confident we have enough time to revise the project and get it completed within the March 2026 deadline. Just moving on to the next series of projects, we have a Living Town programme running in Dewsbury, which is centred on the Daisy Hill area. We have two aspects to that programme within the town investment plan. One is around property acquisition in the Daisy Hill area, and that's a long-term programme of identifying key buildings and pieces of land so we can assemble that land for later delivery of housing. This was one of the later approvals to come back through from government, but we already have acquired 3 buildings and 1 area of land in that area, and there are a number of others which are at negotiation stage. In terms of the larger development, that is Fields House. That is a private sector-led development. The developers there are Mood Developments. Enabling works did start in December, and the council are assisting the developer with accessing a development fund through the West Yorkshire Combined Authority revolving its investment fund grant. We are very close to finalising that grant arrangement, and we are hopeful that project can start on site in April. That will be a 12-month construction process and will deliver 23 flats and some commercial properties on the ground floor. Moving on to the next couple of projects, we have a grant scheme running in Dewsbury, some of which is town investment fund money and some of which is some council investment. We're currently supporting 6 live schemes. That includes 6 to 10 Westgate, the former Principals building, and the Cocoa Lounge, which is almost complete now. The 6 to 10 Westgate building will come forward to Cabinet on the 14th of March. That is a grant to allow changes to the ground floor to commercial premises and the conversion of the upper floors to residential accommodation and some changes to the shop fronts. And we're also dealing with a large quantity of early inquiries, particularly around the Westgate area. Moving on to fibre capability, this project is almost finished now. Phase 1 was completed in the latter end of 2021. That was around Marketplace and Long Causeway. This is about putting ducting into the highway network to allow the fibre to be placed in at a later date. And we're hopeful that phase 2, which is from Marketplace to Pioneer House, we finalised at the end of this financial year. So that's almost project closed on that one. Next on my list is the Creative Hub. We have a creative and cultural programme as part of the town deal process. 2 elements to that. One is a physical hub, a premises to run creative projects. This will be run by a charitable organisation called Brigantia Creative. They are the project managers for this. They are currently considering a number of property options across Dewsbury, but there's no defined property in which to deliver the project as yet, and as such we're still awaiting for them the project delivery dates, and this was the final project that got agreed by government back in February of this year, so they've only had a little bit of time to really get mobilised. The other part of this is an ongoing programme of cultural events, and that is being rolled out by the council's cultural team. That involves events around the Year of Music, Festival of Conversations, Woven, and the first Year of Music event took place at Dewsbury Bus Station in January. So we're rolling that programme out, and that will last till 2026. And we have a specific programme manager appointed for that project to ensure that that runs smoothly. The final one on my list, this is not part of the Dewsbury investment plan process, but it is a very connected project within the Dewsbury Town Centre area, and that is Dewsbury Bus Station. This is being led by West Yorkshire Combined Authority. The slide there shows where we are with that particular project. We are moving through the Combined Authority's assurance programme. We have an approved outline business case, and we're in the process of developing the full business case, and that's planned for submission February 2024. We're at REBA Stage 3 design, and that should be finished at the end of March. and with stage 4 starting a little bit after that, and hopefully completed in November. We still have to determine some of the traffic management and bus stop arrangements outside of that site, so that means we need to connect very carefully with some of our other town centre projects, and some of those project team are embedded into Town Deal and some of the Town Park and some of the market project teams as well, so that we understand and they understand what's going on with that project and they can be dovetailed together. Procurement for design and build contractor was likely to take place in March, so we're doing that in advance. And then construction is programmed at the moment for May 2024 and finish September 2025. But as I say, it's a Wicker-led project, that one. And that is my shortish summary of the key projects in the Town Investment Plan programme.
Thank you. Councillor Firth, do you want to comment on anything before?
Yes, of course. It's very important to me and very important to the people of Dewsbury and the Heavy Woolen area. 9 projects, all very important, and I realise a lot of them are sequential because you can't do one without doing other things first. But the key one for me is the arcade. And I know we're waiting until we've discussed it earlier, as a result of the bid to English Heritage. But once I think we're reasonably confident, touch wood, of that happening. The mood music, I believe, is fine. And once that money is secured, I think we are asking contractors to give us quotes now. And once that money is secured, we'll be able to crack on. See, technical work for begin. Early September. And people of Dewsbury can't wait. We've made so many promises, consulted them almost to death. And they can't wait, as I can't wait for things to start moving. And once they start moving, things will accelerate and we'll see a lot of great things happening in Dewsbury. Can I just touch on the bus station meeting this Friday? That's what we're looking at the diary for. This Friday, officers from Wicker to look at the internal design and give my thoughts or our thoughts on what should be happening there. Because I do believe that the Mayor is quite rightly promoting safe places for women and girls. And to have that, they've got to have a place to go. So I shall be discussing that with officers and hopefully making some progress. That's all for now, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, Dewsbury bus station is a large interchange, isn't it? And it does need somewhere for safe places to go. It's
one of the obviously busiest, or was, because before the pandemic, one of the busiest bus stations in Yorkshire. Let's hope we can, the new bus station will transform that, to get people back on the buses, and economically it makes so much difference to places like Dewsbury and smaller towns around it.
Okay, thank you. I'll open up for questions. Councillor Sain.
Thank you. Thanks for the report there. Just some clarification. You mentioned there was some property that was being acquired, the 3 extra properties that you're looking at. What kind of mix are you looking at in terms of, are they flats or are they actual? So I believe that you mentioned there was some property acquisitions going on. So I'm just interested to know, because I think the private developer, you've got 23 flats, haven't you? But you mentioned trying to acquire more. I'm just interested to know what that makeup would be.
It might help at a later date if we bring forward some further information on the Daisy Hill renewal. But essentially, we're bringing forward a number of buildings to acquire, and we're going through a step-by-step process where we're acquiring them for strategic reasons. So some of them are actually dilapidated and not in use at this moment in time. Some of them are strategic buildings on the corners of particular roads, and some of them are just currently vacant buildings that are currently up for sale. That's not to to say that we're buying up at any price as a local authority. We have to be seen to be spending the public purse wisely. I think it probably would help Scrutiny if we brought forward those acquisitions that we've got and gave you a map of them in the area so that you can see that and see the thought that's been given to whether or not we should demolish or bring them forward for some meanwhile use. I must stress that Daisy Hill Regeneration is a long-term project, so it does not sit within the March 26 TIP timeframe. That is just the start of us looking to regenerate Dewsbury Town Centre for living purposes.
Councillor Firth, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, just on that, Joanne did mention meanwhile use, and I went to see a chap who's acquired is perhaps the wrong word, using one of those buildings for meanwhile use. It's the former sales office for, I can't remember the name, the agent, but it's a big building. It's not in bad condition. Needs a bit of work, checking the wiring, but all being well, it'd be really good for the meanwhile use for the community at large. Because he's got great plans as this guy, Eugene to call him, and because we've problems some problems in and around Daisy Hill, and he's convinced that we can solve that problem and make the people there an asset to the town, rather than that, rather than continue as a problem.
Councillor Singh.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to hear that, because I think sometimes when certain areas embark on projects, often old buildings do get ignored. So I'm really pleased to hear that you are going to work on all dilapidated buildings and try to bring them up to point, especially with the entire plan as well. My other question was around the bidding aspect. I know that you mentioned a couple of things that were still you're bidding for, like the Heritage Fund. I think how confident are we're going to secure those bids in terms of the completion of the entire plan?
We're always looking to see what other funding that we can bring forward. Over the last few years, we've brought in £43 million worth additional funding across Huddersfield, Dewsbury and the smaller town centres. So one of the things we do like to do is to partner with individual organisations. That particular bid that Simon mentioned earlier is a Heritage Lottery Fund grant. We've worked with Heritage Lottery Fund on that grant. They've given us support. They do come to the town deal. That said, nothing is a given that we'll get that. We should get some early indications in May and a formal answer in June. I would say that we are incredibly hopeful that we'll get that money, but we can't guarantee it.
Can I just ask about finances, etc. then, please? So you've got a few of the projects where you're saying you're looking at rescoping, evaluating, etc. to be able to have the projects in the financial envelopes that you've got. And that you said, I think, that you were looking to work with government to make sure that they presumably still achieve the aims of the projects that you've got business cases for that have been to government and approved by government. So how long will that re-evaluation project take? And do you think that you will be able to achieve all of these projects within those business cases? Or is it possible that you may need to additional funding as the project timelines go on?
It's not unusual, I think, across the nation for a number of authorities to be looking at the TIP projects and their funding. Certainly, COVID has changed the nature of what people do within their town centres. Construction price inflation and importation of certain construction materials is making the context in which we operate incredibly difficult. That said, we are incredibly confident that the outcomes that we were delivering during the town investment plan, and that's the important thing to hold on to, the regeneration of Dewsbury, a place where people can live, shop and work, feel safe, have good experience, great links to transport around the wider region. We believe that we can still meet those aims. It's taking some reshaping to be able to do that, and we're grateful to the support from portfolio holder, both in terms of the challenge around that and the town deal board in terms of their flexibility of us working that through. We believe that within the next 2 months we'll be able to bring back all of the schemes within budget. You did ask the question around whether we'd be asking for more money. There's not an opportunity to ask for more money from government at this moment in time, but we are fairly confident that we can rework the 9 projects and bring them back within budget for the outcomes that DLUC are expecting for them.
So you're not, because a lot of these have match funding in them for the government, so is the match funding going to stay in those same envelopes, or do you think you need to look to add to the government money?
So there's a blend of council borrowing, which sits within the capital plan, and there's a blend of the funding from DLUC, which sits against individual business cases. And it's important to recognise that we don't have a funding envelope for all of the projects. The envelope exists at a project level, so you can't be a bit cheaper on one and swap it out for another. It doesn't quite work like that. There's a process for us to go through with government around those. At this moment in time, we are not asking for further council borrowing, and we're not asking for further money from government. What we are looking for is the little bit of time that portfolio holder and the town deal board have agreed for us to reshape the projects within that.
Okay. So the outcomes then that you wanted to achieve, bring more people into Dewsbury. So what is it that you're putting around the projects to bring people into Dewsbury? I can remember when people used to just get the bus and go down and to the market in Dewsbury on a regular basis, but things like that don't necessarily happen as much as they did. So these projects in themselves will make going into Dewsbury more attractive, but what about the softer things around that will help increase the footfall to help attract the retailers in?
So a couple of the key aspects of the market, which I'm sure market colleagues would want me to mention, are that currently the market doesn't trade on every day. There's no intention for the market to trade 7 days a week, but there is an intention for the market to trade more days a week. The outcomes that we're expecting from the market redevelopment also create a mixed economy of market, so that on the days when the market doesn't trade, you can bring in more antiques fairs, different types of market, which would stimulate different people coming into Dewsbury. The changes around the bus station will make it more accessible. We also have the Transpennine upgrade, which Edward and colleagues have talked at length about at other scrutiny sessions, which are making the journey time from Dewsbury and Huddersfield to Manchester and Leeds a lot faster. So we expect that will bring further footfall and further people in to live. One of the things, though, that we need to get right, and that we're concentrating on in both Huddersfield and Dewsbury town centres, is how the town centre operates. So our policies around enforcement, how we maintain and manage the streets, how we support and grow local businesses, right through to just how we staff the town hall and things like that. So understanding how the town centre operates and it being a welcoming place is something that we've already started work on for both Dewsbury and for Huddersfield as well, given that they both are having significant investment and we want them to have every opportunity of success.
Thank you. Just a question on my part. In terms of other areas, when you look at other markets across the country, like Camden Market, they're quite well known. I'm assuming there would have to be some sort of advertising, promotion and marketing going around that. So the music festival that you mentioned, I think that's a really, really good idea. I think that will bring people in for that purpose, but also if there could be any food festivals here, you know, to try and look at that aspect of things to bring people in. And also I'm just looking at, in terms of age groups, can I just have some clarity on what market you're aiming for? I know the arcade is a fantastic project for, and I'm pleased to hear that it's still there. And also, how you're going to sort of, I'd say from 27 to 36, that age market often gets lost sometimes, and I'm just wondering whether you've looked into that, or what you could aim to do for that market as well, because different things attract different people, so it's a big question.
I'll do my very best to answer that question on behalf of colleagues in the Markets and Events Directorate. What I would want to say, and I know Keith Ramsey, Chair of the Town Deal Board, would want me to make certain that Scrutiny knew this. We do have a youth board member on the Town Deal Board. The young lady on the Town Deal Board was nominated through Kirklees College, and she sits on the Town Deal Board. She's incredibly active on the board and has given us some real insights into how young people, particularly how young women, use the town centre and the restrictions that the current dynamic places on individuals using the town centre. So that's been incredibly valuable. And we've also done some cross-working pieces of work with Kirklees College to understand how we get more young people into the town centre. The real answer to all that is the mix of the offer, though, and the offer for the new market has a higher balance of food and beverage offer, which tends to create that atmosphere and that dwell time. That said, there is an importance between its connectivities between the market, the arcade, the college. We want to get more young people to spend more time in the town centre that they're currently not doing. They're coming into college and leaving straight away. So by creating an offer that is a place that you can go to and spend a bit of time, not just get a bit of shopping from, is creating more dwell within that. Certainly what I think we would, if Adele was here, she'd want us to mention is that creating that different offer within the market and that going into that early evening economy will stimulate the town hall and other early evening opportunities in the town centre. There's sadly quite lacking in Dewsbury Town Centre for an evening offer that people want to be able to come and spend the money at, so people who have money to spend are going outside of the town to do that. So just like we're doing with Huddersfield, creating that early evening family-friendly offer. And I can ask Adele to bring some further comments back about the market mix next time we're here if you want, but I hope that answers the question.
Thank you for that. That's quite a comprehensive answer, and also it's good to note that there's a youth board member on there. Obviously, with Dewsbury being a town that's going to be investing in quite largely, and then you've got Huddersfield Blueprint as well. In terms of the north of Kirklees, there's a lot of smaller towns around Dewsbury, and I'm just conscious, how do we tie that in so the market is fairly distributed across Dewsbury and Batley, Hepton Wyke and other areas as well?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my questions. Because how does it fit in with the market strategy across Kirklees? Because we have a lot of markets in North Kirklees and that serve a lot of the towns, yeah.
So I can go into some of the work we're doing in some of the other towns. Sort of markets colleagues might be better placed to sort of answer questions about the strategy. But as we move, you will know this because we're working in the small centres, and we had the small centres before.
We work in some small
centres, as much as I can handle right now. So we're already working in Batley, we're already working in Cleckheaton, Hepton Wyke and Holmfirth. All of those four towns all want market presence. So, but it's not a one-size-fits-all offer. So we're having to work with the communities that want to run the markets and the ward members to make sure we bring the right offer into the town. Our markets colleagues are on with that, trying different models in each area. I think Cleckheaton is probably one of the more successful areas. You've got the farmers market that runs frequently on the car park area. That's quite well cemented. In Batley, we're trying to get that going for Batley as well. There'll be an element of how do you coordinate that? You don't want to be stealing trade from Heckman White if you can put the market in Batley, so you need to distribute that in the right way. But it's not necessarily a one size fits all. It's working with the communities, the people who want to run those markets, and trying to help them to get set up, because some of the markets have died away. But certainly the Cleckheaton one we're holding onto as a good example and a good model for the other areas. I think Home Firth is probably one of those areas where they want to deliver a market, struggling to get it going, but once we help them to get set up, I think it could be quite successful. So markets colleagues are involved, our small centres people are involved, and a host of other sort of services wrapping around these individuals to see whether we can make these things successful.
I think from my perspective as well, you've got Batley, you've got Heckman White, you've got Cleckheaton, you've got Dewsbury markets, all that part of projects that you're looking at. But there are other markets as well, and it's how that all fits in, so you don't have a drain away from other markets that are traditional in other places as well. And I think that's very important to consider as part of this work, because it is the footfall in all the places, and so that you have a good choice across the board and markets. Councillor Firth, you're eager to come in.
Well, just to show the markets, for instance, there is a market strategy. The smaller places, smaller towns, villages haven't been forgotten, but there's only so much work that our officers can do. So let me assure you, they haven't been forgotten, but it'll be quite a while for officers to get round to them. Can I just go back to Dewsbury, please? And because we're talking about, John was very eloquent what she said about Dewsbury, but we want Dewsbury to be a destination. And it can't be like it was before, because that's history. So we're about to reinvent Dewsbury and remake history and reinvent history. And of all the projects, of all are very important, the bus station and the market, so important. But the real catalyst for change is the arcade. And that'll be the first project I see has been delivered. And that will bring other people into Dewsbury. They'll see that we, hopefully, they will see that we mean business in Dewsbury. And they think that in itself, with the TRU upgrade, which we discussed last week in Council, and the bus station, all the work that's been taking place, as I said, catalyst for change, and people will come into Dewsbury, and it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's a long project, but Dewsbury, it'd be unrecognisable in 10 years. It will take 10 years, and you won't be able to get a shop full of the money in Dewsbury. It'd be so busy, it's so vibrant, and that's what we all want to see.
Thank you. I've tried to attract footfall into Dewsbury then. We mentioned about trains, but the train station is quite a distance from the rest of the town, and the bus station's also a little bit away from the centre as well, isn't it? It's nearer, but it's still a little bit of a walk. So how are you going to be able to support footfall so that people can get to the fantastic arcade that you're going to have and things like this that you've described, Councillor Firth? How are you managing that footfall across the area?
So one of the things that we're trying to mobilise at the moment is a people and vehicle movement study so that we can understand the key routes through the town and make those improvements, so that make sure that they're decent places to walk through and they're well lit. And I think some some of that work will be done around the town park and market projects in advance, so that making sure that, particularly between the college and the market, those routes are pretty clear, so that you attract the kids across from the college, and they want to use the market during the term times. So it's a little bit going on now, and a little bit that we know that we need to do. But it'll be concentrating on how do we get people through the best routes in the town, and concentrate on those routes in terms of upgrading them physically and making them safe. But there's a lot of other elements that will need to be wrapped around that. You know, better policing, and making sure that we have the enforcement regimes in place as well. So it's a whole package.
Because there's one particular, isn't it? It's the underpass between sets of car parks and the town hall as well. And that isn't part of anything. Is it part of the town park area that you're looking at? Councillor Firth.
Have you been in the underpass up late? Yeah, have you seen how that wonderful tiling that's been done? And all the lights have been upgraded. It's a very attractive place. It's a busy place, and that's why we've made it so attractive. Got the lights sorted out, so it's perception that people, if there's an underpass there, I'm not going down there, it's late at night. But Simon just touched on it. Once we've done all this wonderful work in Dewsbury, we'd probably have to give tickets, but there'll be that many people want to come to Dewsbury then, and have to push them out of the bus station because it's so attractive in there. But the key to all this, Simon touched on it, is security. We want families down the town, and we want them to feel safe. We want women down the town because at present we're getting stories about the perception that women aren't safe. Maybe some truth in that on their own. So we want to make sure, work with the police, work with our colleagues in the local authority to make sure Dewsbury is welcoming, safe, attractive and vibrant.
Yeah, just one final thing to add to that. There is a good example of how we've tried to address some of those accessibility, mobility issues, and we did a scheme outside of the railway station about 2.5, 3 years ago, which has vastly improved the way that people move from the station into that part of town by narrowing up the ring road, changing the signalling and all that sort of stuff. And it's a much nicer, pleasant environment to enter into Dewsbury. So they're the sorts of things that we need to do more of.
Thank you. And I just wanted to ask about the town park as well. You talked about maybe not changing it so you have more areas. Do you mean more dispersed areas around the town that are more park, or more centralised park? When you were talking about re-evaluating, I think you were saying about.
So at this moment in time, we're working up what we want the town park to look like. But if we just step through some of the key considerations for us, the town park should be a big enough area that you should feel that you can visit it and spend some time there and dwell there. It should have something to offer everybody. So a space to sit if you're elderly or you have mobility issues, a space to play if you're younger, a space to meet people. But it should also provide some aspect of connectivity. We have significant investment going into Dewsbury, and the council as well in its own capital plan separate from the TIP projects has made investment into a number of key buildings in Dewsbury. So to get the arcade linked into the market, linked into the town park, across to the town hall, and pulling that retail core in is incredibly important to us. So those are the key things that we're looking at when we're reshaping the town park offer. But at this moment in time, as I said earlier, we need a couple more months to bring that back.
Do you need any more cabinet decisions, or is it the decisions all with the town board and the government? Because you talked about in your report the cabinet have agreed a process for the business cases. Do you envisage that you might need to come back to cabinet at all with any changes to business cases, or is the conversations purely between the town board and government?
In all events, it's a three-way conversation between DLUC, the Town Board and the Cabinet. At this moment in time, if the decisions that Cabinet and the Town Deal Board, if the decisions that Cabinet have made and the Town Deal Board have supported remain the same, so within the business case context, we would need no further permissions. If they change, then we'll have to look for permission again.
Thank you. I just wanted clarity on that. Thank you. Any more questions? No. Thank you ever so much for that presentation. I think what we've got is markets, strategy around markets, and the Daisy Hill area regeneration and the town centre living projects. I think we wanted a bit more information on how that's going to operate in the future, and also about the softer aspects, how we've talked about, haven't we, about what you're going to put around the main projects to be able to bring that footfall, make it sustainable into the future as well. Okay, as well as an update on when you've re-evaluated the projects and where you are with those. Okay. All right, thank you very much for that. We'll then move on to the next item, which is Cultural Heart, and I believe we have a presentation on that. Thank you.
Okay, so yes, presentation on the Cultural Heart. My name is David Glover. I'm the Senior Responsible Officer for the project. I felt that at this time, the Cultural Heart's been to Scrutiny quite a few times now, and thought at this juncture it would be appropriate to give you an update on the REBA Stage 3 design. That is has recently, just in these last few months, been completed. I'll touch on a few other items. There are a few text slides that contain text at the beginning, and then we go more into the pictures associated with the buildings and the REBA 3 design. So, if I just remind you, this is the master plan, working left to right or south to north. We have the venue and the multi-storey car park, the food hall, which sits within the market hall, the refurbished market hall, the library, which is 50% within the market hall, 50% new build, the refurbished museum with an extension, which was the old library, and then the gallery that sits on Queen Street, and then the town park. I think looking at that image, it strikes me that how well it sits within the town. A reminder, I won't dwell on this slide, but just a reminder of the areas and the scale and the size of the buildings. That they will all be of substance. One of the major aspects of the scheme in terms of preparing for the design and informing the designers and the architects has been the consultation. The Cultural Heart project is building on consultations that have taken place in the past, particularly the Huddersfield Blueprint Place Standards exercise from the end of 2019. Public consultations for the Cultural Heart planning took place in May and August of last year. There have been workshops through those consultations and one-to-one sessions that, of course, meeting with the actual service teams that will operate these facilities, the museum team, the library team, and the events team particularly. They've been involved in the design process. There have been councillor briefings, and then in May, when we started the consultations, there was press releases which attracted significant interest and were published by those agencies listed there. Something that has been of significant importance to us, and of course always should be in terms of new assets, is consultation with disabled groups and people. Of course, the Building Regulations and Equality Act set minimum standards that obviously can't be ignored, but it's important that we go further than that. So there has been a lot of consultation with groups through, and again, working with them at workshops, one-to-ones, and then the iterative design process. It's not just a case of listening and drawing something. You listen, you draw something, you take it back, and that process, you get comments, and that process, that iterative process, you end up, with the result that everybody wants. Listed again are the people that we've spoken to in helping us shape the conversation with the disabled groups. We employed from the very beginning a very experienced disability and inclusivity consultant, Jane Simpson Access Limited, actually based in Huddersfield. Jane and her team have over 30 years' experience in inclusion and represents the Royal Institute of British Architects on a number of different panels. And she, as I say, she's been advising us on going beyond current best practice. We're also working with colleagues in the Kirklees, and particularly Dementia Strategic Partnership Manager, and just tomorrow we're having yet another consultation with Kirklees Disability Network. And this detailed process has generated multiple outcomes and design solutions, of which I've jotted down here 25. I'll do you the favour of not reading them all out. But just to touch on one or two, there will be a new publicly accessible lift adjacent to the library, down from the park down to Queensgate. That will be open 24 hours a day. Areas of rest, yes, there are some stairs within the scheme, but areas of rest with seating integrated into the stepped approaches. There'll be taxi drop-off in close proximity to the building entrances. There'll be covered areas of seating within the public realm. There's 10% wheelchair accessible parking. We will have sensory and calm rooms included across the development, the buildings within the development. And the public realm furniture will be of contrasting materials to the surface and surroundings to make sure it doesn't cause problems to people with partially sighted or dementia. Excuse me, the presentation seems to have frozen. Oh, it jumped one. And then the different methods of engaging through the consultation. We had a digital methods, which of course is very popular now, but also to make sure that everybody could be involved, we made sure that we had non-digital engagement as well. In terms of the programme timeline, and of course, this is all subject to Gateway 3 and Gateway 4 at Cabinet. The Rebus Stage 3 design is now complete. On last week, we gained planning for the scheme, for the full master plan. So those two first items are concluded. At Gateway 3, we will be presenting the final Rebus 3 design and getting that approved. We need to take the planning scheme and approval to that, and then the procurement process that I go into a little bit further down this slide. And then later on Cabinet 4, it will be in Q1 of next year, which would trigger a start on site. So we've been asked to look at phasing and how that could be adopted for the scheme. We'll need to take back any strategy to Cabinet at Gateway 3, but we're currently looking at how we deliver the library, food hall and the events square. This will be a two-stage procurement of a design and build contractor, and so we're currently working on selecting a preferred contractor that would go to Gateway 3 for sign-off. We will then work with that preferred contractor on negotiating the contract sum, and that contract at the same time will work up as a design and build contractor, will work up the REBA for design. That'll go, as I say, to Gateway 4 in February next year for approval to start on site, which we're currently targeting as March of next year, with a completion in Q4 of 2025. Of key importance to the project are the energy and sustainability targets, and there's huge documents behind all these targets, and these are the areas that we have looked to cover. So net embodied carbon, that's things that are included in the construction process of the concrete and the steel and such like that go into the buildings. The operational carbon, the levels of insulation and the ventilation within those buildings will have a huge influence on how much energy is used to heat them and cool them. The water strategy, biodiversity within the park, we're targeting net capital gain of 55%. And then transport and well-being, which of course the park will bring. Well-being will be well. The park will help highly with well-being, if I can get my words out.
We got the drift. Yeah.
So in terms of, now we go into the slides associated with each of the buildings, and so the library, we've used a lot of timber within the buildings. The walls and features are lined with timber. This is not only architecturally pleasing, but also helps with the embodied carbon and keeps those figures down. These slides show the main library floor, and then on the top of the library is event space, which will be quite dramatic in the sense that it will overlook the park, it will look towards the new museum, and will look across the event square and to the town hall. We've worked, as I said earlier, in terms, when I was referencing consultation, we've worked closely with the library team in terms of the design and West Yorkshire Archives Service. There are, of course, details still to work out with each of those services, but that will be picked up through REBA 4 stage, which happens later this year. The library has also successfully decanted out of the building and is currently in the customer services, and as I understand it, is working rather well. Again, you can see that the use of timber in this part of the building and this space, keeping the embodied carbon down to lower levels. The food hall sits within the refurbished market hall. As you can see how it expresses the structure. And then a view back through what will be the new glazing with the peel and reveal approach that the architects have explained in the past. The event square sits where the demolished what has become known as the ex-Dorothy Perkins retail block, which, as you can see, again, opens up the town hall in quite a dramatic way. The square that sits after that demolition of the retail, the design within this square is taking its lead from the history and the heritage of Huddersfield and Kirklees and West Yorkshire in a textile heritage. So the designs within the paving will reflect some of those cloth patterns, and around and as feature bands within that paving will actually be engraved the Made in Huddersfield. There will also be water features. They won't be circular like this. They'll actually be rectilinear to go with the pattern of the park. Then the museum within the old library, again working very closely with the museum and gallery team, and we're entering a phase now where reconsidering the exhibits, of which Kirklees has many, and how they might influence some of the gallery and design spaces. This is the new foyer sitting within the extension. This is in the foyer looking back into the older building, opened up again. The use of timber across is a common theme across all the assets. And then the gallery faces the museum, has 2 levels to it, one down onto Queen Street, so there's an entrance down on Queen Street and then an entrance up onto the park level. The park and play zone, when we brought previous iterations of this presentation earlier on in the design, the public realm has 4 elements to it. The event square that we've already discussed, the gardens that sit between the museum and the gallery and will be a more highly planted area. The terraces that will deal with the slope down between the park and towards Lawrence Batley. And then the park or the play zone. And the designs for this area have been influenced by, again, Huddersfield's heritage and music and the landscape and setting that our towns sit within. And they've influenced the design in a way that the play equipment, the top left image is the mouth of a trumpet, and it will be designed to be a slide. The bottom left image is a trumpet upside down and will be, again, is a slide and stairs up. And then in terms of more natural play, perhaps for younger children, again, taken from the inspiration of the landscape that will be built into that area of the park. This is a view looking with the museum, the new museum at your back and looking towards King Street. And then a similar view, but 180 degrees around, with King Street at your back, obviously, as you can see, the museum to your right and looking towards Castle Hill. Venue multi-storey car park sits on the southern plot where the multi-storey car park, the old multi-storey car park, was demolished. This is the view on the left is on Princess Street, and then the view on the right looking at the venue from and the entrance to the multi-storey car park from Queensgate. And this slide gives a feel of the character and the internal finishes to the venue. Again, quite a lot of use of wood to help with the embodied carbon. But again, I think, as you'll say, it's quite architecturally pleasing as well. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I just have clarity, because you mentioned library, food hall, event square by 2025. And
Yes.
you were being asked to look at how that would work. So what about the venue, museum and gallery? And are you looking at those separately, or have you got different timescales for them? Or?
Well, we've been asked to look at phasing as a concept, and that's what we're currently doing, and that's what we will take back to Cabinet at Gateway 3 in June.
So the phasing of the other aspects of it then, are you still looking at that, or do you have any?
Yeah, we're still
in the process.
We're still looking at the whole concept of phasing. Cabinet can decide on phase 1 and so on, you know, at Gateway 3.
Do you have any questions? Yeah, Councillor Sim.
Thank you for that. Those pictures really brought it to life. My question is around, in terms of your financial aspects, I know, because obviously inflation, construction costs, everything looks absolutely amazing. I mean, it's probably a town I would want to visit if that's the end plan. I'm just thinking about the cost side of things. Where do you stand compared to Dewsbury in terms of the costing of all this? Will we be in budget with what you've sort of showed us?
Yes, we are within budget. The budget has not, well, I mean, the available cash hasn't changed, and it's about working within that budget, isn't it? From day one, we had an inflation allowance, which we've been able to utilise, and you know, which has allowed us to cope with deflation that we are experiencing, and we don't envisage, you know, any I mean, fingers crossed, any difficulties with achieving that budget.
I was just going to mention, thank you for answering my question, just a couple of things. I'm really pleased to see that you've considered the disability aspect and different groups, the dementia, the autistic, and you've actually physically gone out and tried to survey those individuals. So that was really, really pleasing to note. To be fair, I'm a bit speechless because after seeing those pictures, I don't really know what questions to kind of ask, other than also the green aspect as well, which was really good. The fact that you're considering the carbon footprint in your buildings, that's really, really good as well. Yeah, so at the minute, I've got no questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Can I ask about this phasing then, please? I understand that you're still in discussions about it. And we would want it to come back to scrutiny at the right time for us to look in detail at that phasing, I think. But you're talking about discussions on the library, the food hall and the event square, because they're all within the same area, aren't they, in your plan? Can I ask about car parking? Because at this moment in time, people struggle to get a car parking space. If you're wanting to, if you do any phasing and you have the library, the food hall and the event square first, how are you going to sustain extra footfall into the town as a result of that work, and also have availability for public transport and car parking?
I'll pick that question up if I may, Chair. If I can sort of make you cast your mind back to one of the first slides that David put up, which was the visual that shows you south to north or left to right, the way that the town's laid out. The bus station is a direct walk down from the bus station down into the event square. It couldn't be a straight line out of the bus station down to the event square. And as part of the wider Huddersfield Town Blueprint, we've got some other pieces of work across the town centre that are pulling the railway station and some of the connectivity around that. Simon did mention the people and vehicle movement strategy for Dewsbury. That very same piece of work is being undertaken in Huddersfield Town Centre as well, to ensure that the cultural heart is part of the town centre. This is an absolutely massive project for us, but it's not the only project we're doing within the town, and they all have to work together. So we're currently working on how do we get more people in through the bus station. There's the free town bus. How do we make sure that taxis are able to pick up and drop off? How do we provide that nice walking route through from the train station? But alongside that, and I think we announced this last week, we've been working with Kingsgate as our partner for Kingsgate to expand their offer. Part of them expanding their offer is that their car parking will be open into the evenings and longer hours on weekends. So already at that bottom end of the town, once they open, and if I'm remembering correctly, I think that's early next year, there'll be a position in which we can get lots and lots of other people into the town during the day and during the evening down there. And I think the other thing that I'd like to say about the town centre itself is that we want to encourage people to get in here in their car, but also without a car. You know, we've got to make sure that people have the ability to make active travel choices as well as live within the town centre. And I think one of the things that the travel planning has shown us is that about 70% of feedback said that people come in via different methods. Did you want to give a bit of update around that specific transport feedback, David?
Sorry, I was not switching it off, now I'm switching it on again. Yeah, the transport assessment that has gone into the business plan, the business case, has predicted that 70% of visitors to the food hall will be joint visits with other journeys into town. So the food hall itself won't necessarily generate, an excessive additional visits by car.
Right, okay. And the venue, the museum, the gallery and the play zone then, when are you looking at to have those in place then, if you are going to go along a phasing route? Where are your decision points for those? Do you know yet?
At this moment in time, everything that we've previously said about the construction period stands. As David has said earlier, Cabinet have asked us to look at phasing of Part 1 and look at options around phasing of all of the projects. Phasing shouldn't be taken to mean one thing finishes and another thing starts. This is us going away and looking at around how we can make this fit together and have a minimal amount of impact on the town centre whilst managing the construction period in a good way and managing sensible outcomes to come forward. Did you want to add anything, David?
Well, just, I mean, it's not for me to speak or represent Cabinet in any way, but the phasing is a question we're being asked. We're ready. We've previously been prepared to deliver the project in one go. Phasing is around creating an ability of prudence and the economic climate that we're in, and giving options as to when and choices as to when things can be done, and affordability of when they can be done. What ultimately gets decided, obviously, isn't my call.
No, I realise that's a decision for Cabinet. I realise that. What I'm just trying to get a feel of is when all those decision processes, if they do decide, because I could understand as well that if you did it in one construction phase, that it would be a massive impact as well. But also, you are presumably needing to stay within your financial the finances that have already been agreed for this project. And one of my questions was as well, are you looking for monies from anywhere else as you go along this project to be able to deliver these schemes?
So in terms of finances, like all projects that are within the capital plan, be that this great big project or a little bit of something within St Peter's Gardens, which is equally as important to the town, we are expected to live within the current budget that's there, which means that officers have to come forward with options. The options, as David's outlined, will come forward at REBA Stage 3, which is in June. One of the things we are doing is we are looking all the time. So it was there to be a levelling up round 3 call. We'd have a think about what we wanted to put into that, what we wanted to prioritise, what we wanted to move forward. As Simon has said earlier, for Dewsbury, we've looked to access some heritage lottery funding. We'll be continuing to look and see what funding there is. Heritage funding. We'll be continuing to see what other funding there is from lottery and other things to supplement council borrowing or replace council borrowing.
It was just I wondered if there would be streams of funding coming on for like museums, galleries, libraries and things like that.
The Arts Council previously had investment in buildings and then has invested in communities and events. I imagine it'll come back to invest in buildings. We are always alive to that, working with Adele Poppleton and her team and their good relationship with the Arts Council to ensure we get funding. As opportunities present themselves, we'll do our best to convert those into reality, as officers are always alive to the fact that the council's borrowing is a significant commitment.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I was going to ask whether the borrowing was still affordable, but do you want to, is that a question for a different meeting?
I think that's probably a question for the council section 151 officer. The only thing I would say is that all the capital that we've spoken about today remains within the council's capital plan.
Thank you. Right, okay. I wanted to ask a question about the accessibility, because really pleased that you're working with different groups and that you're looking at dementia-friendly procurement. Absolutely key that we include everybody and ensure accessibility across the town. And that you've got some plans for calm rooms and things like this. I think really, really important. And that the procurement in the council is dementia friendly across the council. I think that's important as well. But something that I was asked about in a different arena, but I just wondered, are you looking at, as well as we used to things in Braille, but are you looking as well at colours, but are you looking as well at British Sign Language signs? What about people who are deaf? Because isn't there some initiative somewhere to have BSL signs in different places? Has that been considered as well?
I can't. I mean, you'll appreciate, again, that knowing absolutely every aspect of this project with the 40-odd consultants that we've got working on it is a challenge. It's not something that, you know, I'm personally aware of at the moment, but I'll certainly take that away from this panel and investigate that. It sounds interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was, and it was something that could be part of accessibility for people. Okay. Your public realm picture. I didn't spot any lights, plenty of trees, but no lights. So can you just quickly assure us that there are some lights for a safety reason?
We actually have a really lovely nighttime picture, which would have proved to you that you can't shake a stick without hitting a really carbon-friendly LED, the right type of lighting. So David's trying to flick back and find a picture of the lighting, but yeah, it is like, it wouldn't be, we couldn't sit here and say it was a safe area if it didn't have the right amount of lighting in it.
That's okay, I just wanted to be assured of that. Councillor Sane, do you have any more questions?
I don't know, not at this stage.
Thank you. I think what we'd say is we would want to, when you're further along with your discussions on phasing, we would want to understand what that involves, okay? And we would also, I think, like to hear from the consultations engagement with the accessibility initiatives that you're undertaking, and also about that movement around the town and bringing people in that we've talked about as well, and your strategies for actually being able to park would be good. Even though, because some buses do take a long time to get to Huddersfield. Okay, and we look forward to Regeneration Scrutiny, seeing you again when you're at another point that we can discuss your phasing. Okay, all right, thank you very much, thank you. And I think that concludes the agenda for today, so we shall close the meeting. Thank you for attending, everybody. Thank you.